Start this, man.
Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een amma ba'd. Tonight on the 6th of Rabi' al-Thani in the year 1443, corresponding to the 10th of November 2021, we are in the book Al-Wajeez, the concise presentation of the fiqh, starting chapter 11, Bequests, on page 557. The Arabic word for bequests comes from a term implying connecting. The one who makes a bequest connects what is in his life with what is after his death. As a legal term, it refers to a person bestowing upon another an item, credit, or use of something to another as a gift after his death. Its ruling.
Okay. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa mawala. Al-wasiyya, they call it the bequest, and also it is the will. But the bequest is something that you give as a gift, not instantly. It will take place after your death. So it's like a promise for him to take it after his death. So they call it bequest, or the will. It's a will as well. Wasiyya. In my will, I have granted you this following bequest. Whether it's in something like an item, land, money. And it could be as well the rent of such and such house. All of that. But this, as I said, will take place after the death of the person. This person is allowed to change his will. So in his life, he made a will that he's going to give a car to such and such a person. Before he died, he didn't want it. So now nobody would say to him, you're not allowed to change your will. It's his money. This money is still his. And it did not transfer to that person until after his death, because it's all a will. It's not an instant present. The present, as soon as you say to the person, I'm giving you this gift, and you hand it over the key. Okay, so once the key goes into the hands of that person, I'm not allowed to change my mind. But if the key is still in my pocket and I said, I'm going to give you the car, he didn't have any possession of the car, I could change in the meanwhile because I didn't give him. And they could refer to the classes regarding the gift. But the will, as long as I'm alive, I'm the testator, I'm the person who's going to give this bequest, I'm allowed to change it whenever I want. As for him to accept or not to accept, basically it is his acceptance will be as well valued after the death. All right. So before the death, yeah, he could say that I don't want this will. Yes, but I'm just saying he hasn't got the right to say that give it to me now. Okay, because it hasn't transferred to him. Right, let's go to the ruling of it, and then we will basically, inshallah, divide this class into two parts, this part and the following part, because lots of things regarding the will are connected here. Now,
its ruling. To make a bequest is obligatory upon the one who has the wealth that he wishes to bequest. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كتب عليكم إذا حضر أحدكم الموت إن ترك خيرا الوصية للوالدين والأقربين بالمعروف حقا على المتقين. It is prescribed for you when death approaches any of you, if he leaves wealth, that he makes a bequest to his parents and next of kin, according to reasonable manners. This is a duty upon the pious. Abdullah ibn Umar narrated that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, it is not right for a Muslim who wishes to bequest something to spend 2 nights except that he has his written bequest with him.
Right. It's ruling, he had chosen the author that is to be compulsory upon every person who has wealth. The opinions of the scholars regarding the rule of the will, the rule of the bequest, is it compulsory or not, is of 3 opinions. Opinion number one, which has been chosen by the author, that is regardless of how little is the money that you've got, you have to make a will. So once you have money with you, you have to leave a will, a bequest, whether the money is lot or too little. And this is the madhab of Ibn Hazm, and also from the scholars of the Sahaba, Abdullah ibn Umar, Talha wa Zubayr, Abdullah ibn Abi Awfa, wa Talha ibn Mutarrif, and we're going now down to the followers, Tawus wa Sha'bi, and all of those. They have said that it is compulsory, and they have used the same verse which is being just recited to us now. Second opinion is to say that it is compulsory to the walidain, the parents, and those who are next of kin, which do not inherit by the inheritance of Allah. So it's not like your direct father. It's like, for example, the father of your mother. Okay, so this is not direct father. A father who does not inherit. A grandfather who is in the presence of the father. So your father is alive, your grandfather is alive. If you die, your father will block your grandfather. So you have to make a will for your grandfather. That's how it says. That is the second opinion, which is the weakest. And this is the opinion of Masruq, Iyas and Qatada and Ibn Jarir and the Imam al-Zuhri. As for the third opinion, which is the opinion of all the four Imams, Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik and Shafi'i and Ibn Hanbal, and also along with them as Zaydiyah, they said it's not compulsory upon every person who had left money, just like in the first opinion. So if the first opinion said all of those who got money, regardless, it's compulsory upon them. They said not everybody. And it's not also compulsory to give a will to your next of kin and those parents of yours who do not inherit by the laws of Allah Azza wa Jal. They're saying it could be compulsory, it could be recommended, it could be even haram, and it could be disliked, or it could be just permissible. Hadith Abdullah ibn Umar says, "Ma haqqu imri'in muslimin lahu shay'un yusi fi." This hadith which we have just recited. Any person, Prophet said, who has something to bequeath, he should not sleep more than 2 nights, except that his will written ready with him, maktubatan idhan inda ra'sih, next to his head, the narration. And that's why Abdullah ibn Umar, upon hearing this hadith from the Prophet of Allah, and he narrated it himself, he said, after hearing this, 2 nights did not pass upon me except that my will was ready. The Sahaba shows you straight away, when you hear the Prophet of Allah saying something, they will implement it. You are hearing something now from the Prophet of Allah, make sure you got a will. Now this will, just like the third opinion, which is, it cannot be compulsory in every occasion, but it will be compulsory in the following occasions where you have a debt to settle before you die. You have to make a will for that debt to be settled. You have, for example, a person who is in dire need and he's not an inheritor, he's not one of those legitimate inheritors, or legible, I should say. Then you must make a will. Not only that, even if you don't have money, but you know for a fact that when you die, you're going to be buried in a bid'ah way, you have to make a will to be buried upon the sunnah. If you're a revert to Islam and you have the fear when you die that your next of kin who are non-Muslims will take you and bury you in their cemetery, to make a will, proper will, documented with the solicitor, to make sure that you're going to be buried in the Muslim cemetery and according to the sunnah. So it's not just the will upon a person who has got money is compulsory. No, those particular cases. Okay, those particular cases. And it becomes also haram, this will, if you made a will where there is haram into it, like depriving your family from inheriting. So your father, your mother, your kids. So you're making a will where you are scattering the money and you're going to harm them. this will is haram. Unless they have given you the go ahead. So all your money, you said, I'm going to give it to charity. That's haram. Unless all your kids and all your heirs who inherit from you, they gave you the go ahead. And even that go ahead just to make it permissible for you to write the will. But the value of their verdict and of their opinion, it will not be taken except after your death. So they might say to you, yes, okay, Dad, write all the money to the charity. But after you died, one of them changed their mind, or all of them changed. No, we want the inheritance. So their opinion, or their decision, I should say, it will be valued after the death, not before. Because maybe while you were alive, you told your kid, I'm going to give this money to charity, or I'm going to give more to one of the kids who inherit from you, more to one of your brothers. They might say to you, yes, because they're scared of you, or they don't want to upset you. Okay? But even they say yes, they could change their mind as soon as you die, because the value of their decision is only after the death of the testator, the person who bequeath. So it will become haram also if you have made a will which is over the third. We're gonna give this documented to you, inshallah. So if it is over the third as well, it is not allowed, unless also again the heirs allow you to do that, and their decision will be valued after your death. They might change their mind. They don't want to, give you waive out the over the third excess. It is disliked to make a will when you have little money to bequeath somebody else. To make a bequest, I should say, not to make a will. You could make a will for not to be bad except for the sunnah, but to make a bequest, to bequeath somebody, and your money is little. So if you bequest something, you're going to leave your dependents, children, and all that. They're not having enough money. Disliked, even if it's within the third. Even if it's within the third. Right. Now we come to how much, which is the third. How much? Fadal.
The amount of wealth recommended for a bequest. Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas said, the Prophet ﷺ came to visit me while I was in Mecca, and his dislike for one to die in the land from which one had emigrated. He said, may Allah have mercy on Ibn Afra, who died in the land from which he had emigrated. I said, O Messenger of Allah, shall I bequest all of my wealth? He said, no. I said, half? He said, no. I then said, a third? He replied, a third is permissible, but even 1/3 is a lot. For you to leave your heirs wealthy is better than to leave them dependent on what the people give them via begging. Whatever you spend properly will be an act of charity, even the morsel of food that you raise to your wife's mouth. Perhaps Allah will lengthen your life so that some people may benefit from you, while others will be harmed due to you. At that time, Sa'ad had only one daughter.
Right, so here it shows you the keenness of the companions to give everything for the sake of Allah. He wants to give all his money. He's got one daughter, the inheritance. And his daughter, when he dies, she will take all. She will take half, okay? And according to some of the scholars, the other half will go to her, depending, okay? So some scholars, they say half is for her, which is her share. Some of they said, because there's nobody else as well, she takes the other half. Other scholars would say she'll take a half, and the other half will go to the house of treasury of the Muslims. So when the Prophet ﷺ, he paid him a visit in Mecca, he was ill. Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas. He did not die, by the way, because he thought he was going to die. He said, Messenger of Allah, can I leave all my wealth? No. Half? He said, no. He said, third. He said third, but third's still too much. Better to give less than the third. Even Abdullah ibn Abbas said, quarter. The third is permissible, but it's not good. Too much, but it's allowed. Because it's better to leave your heirs, dependents are better off not to go and beg people. That's the whole thing. Now, if the person did not have anybody to inherit him, he could give all his money. He could give all his money, no problem. But in this case, I want to discuss, he's got a daughter, and the daughter, she inherits only a half. That's the maximum share of a daughter. And the other half differs upon the scholars. Said some scholars, they say the other half will go to her. Other scholars said, no, she's not an agnate. If it's a son, yes. If she's an agnate with a brother, yes. But on her own, no. Only a half, and the rest of the half will go to Bayt al-Mal, Bayt al-Mal al-Muslimin. But in this case, he asked, can I make a bequest of half? Okay. Whereas the other half is only one half is going to go to his daughter, because if he had nobody, nothing there, he could bequeath all of his money, no problem. That's why the scholar, they said, some of them, they said, no, he cannot bequeath all his money, bequest all his money. A third, and the rest will go to Bayt al-Muslimin under the authority of the governor. Some, they said, no, he could bequeath all of it. And that's the correct opinion, because the third is only being made there not to be unjust to your heirs. So if you had no heirs, okay, then they said you could bequeath more than that. And the Prophet of Allah here in this hadith answered Sa'd ibn Waqqas not because he's got a daughter. He didn't ask him, how many kids do you have? Maybe the Prophet doesn't know. He's asking in general, shall I give a will to all my money? So he didn't ask him, does you have heirs or not? He said to him, no. Half, no. He said to him, third, yes. Third is yes. So a third, in the case you have heirs which will inherit more than a third. But if you have no heirs, or an heir of, like, for example, like this daughter, you could make a will over the third, because her share is guaranteed. The sister, the daughter, she will take a half. Now, تفضل. Allah musta'an.
There are no bequests for the predetermined heirs. Abu Umama al-Bahili said that he heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam say during his speech of the farewell pilgrimage, verily Allah has given each his due right. Thus, there is no bequest for the predetermined heir.
Okay, there is no bequest to the predetermined heir, meaning which Allah had said that they will inherit. You cannot make a will, a bequest for them. Why? Because you're going to be transgressing onto the right of Allah Azza wa Jal, and He is the one, Allah the Almighty, knows who's closer to you. That's why He divided the money and the inheritance according to the law of inheritance. By the way, we're going to study that after this, laws of inheritance. So each one Allah's given him. For example, if it's a son and a daughter you left, the son will take 2/3. Daughter she'll take 1/3. And if there's a mother and a father, the father and the mother will take 6 and 6, each one of them, and the rest will be divided between the son and the daughter. So Allah Azza wa Jal had divided Himself in the Quran, and the Sunnah of the Rasul added as well to it. We are not allowed to make our own laws. So that's why the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Inna Allah a'ta kulla dhi haqqin haqqa. Allah Azza wa Jal has given to each person his due right. فَلَا وَصِيَّةَ لِوَارِثٍ. There is no bequest to somebody who's already predetermined heir. I mean, Allah had said to him, he's an heir. You cannot make so you can't give more portion to a son, because he's going to inherit by the laws of Allah, or more portion to the wife, or more portion to the. You cannot, because they are being determined. Because you're going to be making now. You're going to be making something which is, I would say, harm to the heirs. Allah knows who is better or who is closer to you. This hadith is, as the scholars have said, is one of the hadiths which is, even though it is hadith ahad, meaning it's not mutawatir, yet it abrogates, cancels the ayah which we have just said, al-wasiyyah lil-walidayn wal-aqrabin, to make a wasiyah, a will, bequest to the walidain, to the ones who are parents. So your father and your mother, your direct parents, there is no will for them. Cannot bequest them, because they are heirs. They are predetermined heirs by the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. Either you interpret these two parents, meaning which is indirect one, like grandfather, grandmother, with the presence of the father and the mother, or they are linked from your mother's side, so they don't inherit. But the real father of yours, he is a predetermined heir. He is a legitimate heir. He is eligible heir. He will take by Allah's law. How can I make a bequest for him? It's not allowed. So this ayah was abrogated by this hadith. La wasiyyata liwarith. And this is a hadith which is not mutawatir can abrogate an ayah which is mutawatira. Abrogates the meaning of it, which is you cannot give to somebody who is already a predetermined heir a portion which is extra than the portion which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him. Unless, as I said, with the approval of other heirs. Unless with the approval of other, but that will be valued after the death of that person, not before his death. They might say yes, but they might change their mind. Right, fadal.
What should be written at the beginning of the bequest? Anas said, they used to write the following at the beginning of their bequests. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful, this is the bequest of so-and-so who bears witness that there is none worthy of worship except Allah, alone without any partners, and that Muhammad is his slave and messenger. He also bears witness that the hour is coming without any doubt, and that Allah shall resurrect those in the graves. I advise those whom I have left behind for my family to fear Allah and make matters proper between them. I also advise them to obey Allah and His Messenger, if they are truly believers. I advise them with what Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam advised his two sons and Yaqub. O my sons, Allah has chosen for you the religion, and therefore do not die except as Muslims.
Okay, right. So this is what they used to write. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim in their will. This is what so-and-so had willed, and this is the will of so-and-so. You could document it with a solicitor, but you say that Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu Muhammad Rasulullah, and you start with these phrases, which is that they believe in the hour, and that Allah Azza will resurrect the people in the grave, and so on and so forth. And then you will admonish your family to fear Allah, keep up to the prayer, and all of that. And then after this, you could just document some of those things which are important, like to do with money and to do with portions of money and all of this, or to be buried upon the Sunnah, or to be buried in a Muslim cemetery, and so on and so forth. Right. Continue, please.
When does the person receive what he was bequeathed? The one receiving a bequest is not entitled to it until after the bequeather has died and after his debts have been paid. If his debts consume all of his estate, nothing is to be given as a bequest. Ali radiallahu anhu said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to settle the debts before fulfilling the bequests, even though you recite in the Quran after any bequests made or debts to be paid.
The Quran says, من بعد وصية يوصي بها أو دين, after a wasiya or dain, but actually the dain, which is the debt, takes priority. So the prioritization, when somebody dies, first thing goes out of his money, his funeral cost, the grave, the shroud, all of that, the funeral cost. Then after that, the debt. Then after that, the will, the bequest. Then after that, the heirs, which is the son and the daughter and the father and the mother. So this is the list of the prioritization. Priority first. When somebody dies, first thing we go before we give to anybody. How much money cost the grave? How much money cost the shroud? All of that. Then after that, the debts. Settling the debts. And the debts actually are in categories as well. The most important debt is to settle is the one to release the assets. So if, for example, he's got houses which is being pawned. So if there is money there to release the pawning in order for the inheritors and the people who are being bequested to benefit from that. So debt to release the assets. Then after that, the debt, this is within the category of debts. Then after that, the debt, which is of Allah Azza wa Jal, meaning a person died and he hasn't paid his zakah. So his zakah was due. So zakah has to be taken out straight away to be given to the poor people. Or he's got an expiation. So some money will be taken to expiate. Or for example, ransoming, which is the fidya. It has to be big fidya because he had a fidya on him. Some money will be taken for the fidya before any money goes to anybody else. Third type of debt, which is the debt of the people. So a person is in debt to him by £100, so £100 will be taken to that person, £100 to the other person. Then we come to the bequested people. So if there was nothing left, bequested people will take nothing. Okay? And the ones who take from the bequest, they had to take within the third. So that's the third. So if there was an effect on the money, let's say, for example, the bequest was to 2 people, and it was actually £200, so 100 each. And because the person who had left the will, he left only £1,000, the one who died. So the loans taken away and everything, and the funeral procession, the zakah, and all of that, they were left with what? With 500 or 400 pounds, you say. Actually, it's 300 pounds. Make sure, 300 pounds he left, and he's got a bequest of 200 pounds. They can't take 200 pounds because 200 pounds is more than the third. The third of the 300 pounds is 100 pounds. So because it's 100 pounds, this is the maximum, and they're being bequested to 100, they can't take 100, they will take 50. 1 over 2 is 50% of that. So they will take which one of them? 50, another one is 50 instead of 100, 50. So that's the third. And the 200 left will be for their heirs, for the son, the daughter, the father, and the mother, the wife, and so on and so forth. Right. These are the prioritization. I will give it to you, inshallah, on the screen next week. Okay, so you could take a screenshot of that and write it down. Now, fadal.
An important note. Given that the majority of the people today are engaged in innovations in their religion, especially in the matters related to the funeral, it becomes obligatory upon a Muslim to write a bequest demanding that he be prepared and buried according to the Sunnah. This act would be an implementation of the verse in the Quran. يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا وقودها الناس والحجارة عليها ملائكة غلاظ شداد لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. O you who believe, ward off from yourselves and your families a fire whose fuel is men and stones, over which are appointed angels stern and severe who disobey not the commands they receive from Allah, but they do that which they are commanded. Thus, the companions of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to leave such a bequest. Many reports of this nature can be found. Thus, for example, Amir ibn Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas told his son during his final illness, "Make the grave with a niche to the side and erect a brick over it, as they had done for the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam."
Right. So this is the bequest, which is the will, even if you haven't got money, that is to be buried upon the Sunnah. Right. Second.
A second important note: if a man has a descendant, such as his son, who is an heir but who dies during the man's lifetime, he then must make a bequest on behalf of the child of that descendant, that is, his own grandchild, to the amount that the descendant would have inherited up to 1/3 of one's wealth, and 1/3 itself is a lot. If the man dies without making such a bequest for the children of his son, then they are to be given the amount that they had the right to, as this is considered a type of debt on the man. If the man dies without making such a bequest, the debt is not done away with, and these days the issue can be taken to court.
We will summarize these in points. We will say the conditions linked to the person who bequeathes, the one who's going to die, bequeathes, and the one who is going to receive the bequest, and also the bequest itself. So there are 3 things attached to each one of them. So we're going to be documenting them, inshallah, in points. Allah al-Musta'an. Right, let's go to share with you this document. So I'm going to share a screen here. Now. Right, so we find here that is the will and ruling of the will. this is to clarify more and to add some point as well, because remember, the concise is a concise. It's not really everything there. So ruling of wills, or you could say rulings of bequest, legal declaration of how a person wishes his possession to be disposed of after his death. That's the definition of it. It is obligatory to make a will, whether a written one or oral, upon the following cases. Case number one, he who holds financial rights of other or vice versa, where these rights are not recorded lest they should be lost, debts and so on and so forth. Secondly, it become compulsory the ones who has a branch that died before him. So you've got a son, he's died before you, the one who is the father. And the son of yours, he has sons, they are grandchildren. Those grandchildren, they will not receive any inheritance from you as a grandfather if there was other sons present. So if one son, let's say that this man has got two sons, and one of the sons has got sons, and the other one has got sons as well. Two of them have got sons. If one of his sons die before him, so if he dies, inheritance will go all of it to that son. Nothing will go to the grandchildren of the son who died before him. That's the law. So in this case, it becomes compulsory upon you to write the will, which is the last here, the last one we just read just now. Okay, so we have to make a will through which the grandchildren of that dead son of yours before he died before you to receive the same portion as their father is alive. So let's say, for example, you left 1,000, one son you got left, so he will take all the 1,000. But now we know you should make a will by which he will take 500. So 500 I'm going to make. So that 500 is to the other son. Now that 500 is going to be over the third. And who's the one who's going to be basically who is going to be responsible for waiving out that thing is the other son. The other son said, okay, we could say yes at the moment, and later on he could change his mind because he does only a third. So he should really bequest. So the person who is going to be dying, he should really put his will that if the son of his is alive, but if it's going to be exceeding the third, the only one to waive out that above the third is the other heirs, which is in this case the other son. If he said yes in his lifetime, the lifetime of the father, okay, but he might change his mind because, as I said, it will be valued only after the death of that testator. Then he would say only, oh, well, okay, 500 he'll take, or no, it's only a third. I'm going to give him 333. That the grandson which is the nephews and the nieces of his, share that, and I'm going to take the 2/3 of my father's inheritance. Right. And also it becomes compulsory, obligatory, this bequest and this will, he who knows that there will be matters contradicting Islam after his death, such as innovation in the funeral. Like some people are going to dance. Yeah, it's called grave dance. He said, no, I don't want to do that, something with that. Some people are going to be, for example, buried in a way which involves the bid'ah of, carrying the coffin. I've really seen that in Africa. It's called the death dance. They really carry the box where the dead person is, and they make acrobatic movies. The dead person is flying, actually. Allah al-Musta'an. Or, for example, he's a revert to Islam. His next of kin, the relatives of his from the other side, they are non-Muslims. Once he died, they might bury him in a non-Muslim way, in a non-Muslim cemetery. So he will make a will here, a must upon him, to be buried in a Muslim cemetery. Because his family, they will take him to a non-Muslim cemetery. Also, inheritance will not be implemented according to Islam unless stated in a will. So you're living in a non-Muslim country. You know that when you die, everything goes to the wife. Some go to the children. So you want now this is to be fair and just. So you make a will that you want your will, you want your money to be divided according to the Sharia, and you put there the executive, the one who's what do you call it? The one who executes the executor, is what the executor, the one who executes the will, basically the one who implements the will. He will take this will to be implemented. So you write that into your will. I want my money to be divided according to the Muslim way. You could put as well Hanafi, or you could put the Shafi'i madhab. Okay. So each one is got, because the Hanafi gives the heirs money, even they are not like the father and the son. He gives, for example, the cousin, whereas the Shafi'i, no, he said the rest does not go to them. It goes to the Bayt al-Mal. Anyway, so you could just choose one of them, but you cannot say, I want my daughter to take a half, another, because you don't know who's alive. Okay, even if you have decided the share which Allah had given them, you don't know who's alive when you die. They could die with you. So you just say, my money to be divided according to the Islamic law. For those who are listening to me and rich and they got money, you have to think about that properly. Document that with a solicitor. Okay, everything will be, because one day I had a person who had called me with the solicitor in his hand, and he's an English person, he's a solicitor. And he said, this person wants to write his will, and the brother, which I know, he said to me, can you just tell him, how much the mother takes? And I said, no, I can't tell you, because your mother, she could die before you. She could die with you. You should just say that you put in your will who is the one who's going to be implementing the will, execute the will, and also you want it to be done according to the Sharia al-Islam. Khalas. Make sure that it's documented, then it will go through the solicitor. طيب. Coming back to the following point, it is recommended to make a will for those who want to give a portion of their wealth to any good causes, especially from a wealthy person whose heirs are well off. You are a wealthy person, your heirs, your children, mashallah, are well off, they don't need money. And you have, for example, masjid and all of that. So it's good to make a will that some of your money goes to these charities within the third. You could go above the third as long as the heirs, they waive that out, and they keep waiving that out already after your death. Also, it is disliked for those who have insufficient funds, few money, very little money, and whose heirs are in need, so they are not rich, they're not well off, to make a will to give money as donations. Don't give donations, because your heirs, they need your money. It's better for you to leave them their hands like this, means let's have the hands like this to give, rather than to be having their hands to be taken. Don't make them beggars. Right. After that, go to the following slide, which is this one, I think. Yeah, no, yeah, 6, 7. Now, a will made by sane, distinguishing child is valid and binding, just as his prayer is valid. And this is controversial. Some scholars, they said, no, he has to be, he has to reach this puberty. Okay? Sanity is important. If he's insane, there will be no will for him. If he's completely insane, regardless of what he says, it cannot be binding. He has to be sane. But to reach the puberty, that's a controversial. And this is the correct madhab, which is madhab Imam Malik. And that is, if he is a child, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, before puberty, and he knows what he's saying, it's called common sense, his will be binding. And the will is valid and binding if written by testator's handwriting, or if there were 2 witnesses to an oral or written declaration. So if he written by his own hands, and people can realize that this is his own handwriting, that's a will. Or he had made it oral to somebody and there's 2 witnesses, or he had made to be written, like a written document onto the word documents here. He made a will, and he made 2 people to witness that it is your will, not nobody had written it for you. So you typed it, and then you made 2 people to witness it, to be 2 witnesses. Now, it is permissible to bequeath a baby in the womb but not a predicted pregnancy as he is considered in existence. This is from the conditions of the one whom you're going to bequeath. He has to be existing, or there will be existence of him. So I cannot bequeath, for example, some money to the child of my daughter. My daughter, she's married to somebody. And by the way, the children of my daughter, they will not inherit anything. So I could make them a bequest. So I said, okay, so my daughter, she is married to somebody, and I'm giving a bequest. She has got no children yet. A bequest to her children, but there's not a child. There's no pregnancy. But I'm predicting that there will be pregnancy. That's not allowed. If she got pregnant, yes, could make a bequest for that child, because there is a sign, there is an existing, somebody to bequeath him. Otherwise, it will not be valid. Right. It is permissible to bequeath unspecified items, such as a slave or animals. In such case, the legatee is given anything by that means. So if, for example, you have put in your bequest that I want to give a slave as a bequest, or an animals. So in that case, I'm saying the person who's going to receive this bequest, he will be giving anything by that means. So it could be, I could give him any animal. So I've got cats, I've got lions and all that. So the cat will be given to him because it hasn't been specified. So I could give him the minimum. So I've got lions and cheetahs, but the lions are maximum price, but the cats are the cheapest. I could give him a cat because he didn't specify. Slave, I could give him the weakest one who's got no muscles, he can't carry anything. I could give him the slave because it's unspecified. But it is permissible to bequeath the entire estate if there are no inheritors. You see, that's what we just said. No inheritors, you could, all your estate, you could bequeath it as a bequest. It is permissible to the testator, or for the testator, to change his will at any time before his death, which we have spoken about. It is permissible to bequeath Muslims or none. That means non-Muslims. But non-Muslims should not be bequeathed things that are not allowed to be owned by them. I cannot, for example, put a Muslim slave to be a bequest for a non-Muslim, because Allah Azza wa Jal, وَلَن يَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ لِلْكَافِرِينَ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ سَبِيلًا. Allah will not put an authority of the kuffar over the Muslims. So I cannot give a slave who's a Muslim to be transferred after my death as a bequest to a non-Muslim. It's not allowed. It is impermissible to bequeath unspecified non-Muslims. I cannot just say, for example, I want to give this laptop to a kafir, a non-Muslim. I cannot say that. I have to specify him. Who is that person? John, Peter, whatever his name. I cannot just say to a non-Muslim like that. It doesn't work. It is impermissible to bequeath in a manner that contradicts Sharia, even if the testator is a non-Muslim. Example, building a church. I cannot, for example, say I want this money to go to build a church, build a tomb for a Muslim grave, printing Bibles, printing, whatever it is, not Quran, for example, something which is, it is not allowed. It contradicts the Sharia. I am not allowed to bequeath such money for that, or to aid that. Finally, this is this page. I've got 2-3 pages left. It is impermissible to bequeath someone that cannot be a rightful owner. So I cannot, for example, bequeath my wealth to my cat, or to a jinn who has been talking to me or possessing me, or somebody who is dead. No, the person who you should bequeath to, it should be a person who can own. Okay, you've heard about people giving all their inheritance to their dog. It doesn't work like that. Dog cannot own. It doesn't know what to do with it. And the government love that sort of inheritance or such bequests, because when the dog dies, they will take the money. So we're not allowed to do that. Cannot give your inheritance to a dog, or to something like jinn, or to a dead person. We stop here, inshallah. and we will ask you to ask questions regarding the will. Let me just see how many pages are left for me to do. So I will just say here that is page 7, and then after that page 8, page 9, page 10. So I've got 10 pages here, right? And then I've got the executor here, the testator, which is the one. I've got some points regarding him, and I want to go also to a slide here, which is the prioritization. Please, take a snapshot of that one. After death, when somebody dies and leaves money, the following rites should be fulfilled in that order. First, funeral procession, the washing, shrouding, transporting, burial. It has to be done without extravagance. I cannot just go and buy a granite sort of headstone, which costs about £1,000 to put it next to his grave. That's haram. It is regarded as personal. Okay, it is regarded as personal clothes, for it will not be taken off to pay debt. It is regarded as personal clothes, for it will not be taken off to pay debt. So the funeral procession, basically, if somebody had given him a shroud from his money, no problem. Okay, no problem. Debt. Second one is debt. Settling liabilities to release the assets. That's the first debt. Secondly, Allah's debts, like zakah, the vowing, nahr. Somebody vowed before he died. You have to fulfill that vow, whatever the vow is. Kafara, expiation, fidya, ransom. And then after that, the people's death. Third issue, Islamic will. So it comes after, so the Islamic will, or Islamic bequests, you should say. It comes after debt, as Prophet ruled for debt to be before the will. In the Quran, it shows the will before the debt. But Allah's Messenger, he said, no, the debt before the will. It is a donation, whereas the debt is compulsory. Okay? Because the will, the bequest, is a donation. And the debt is compulsory, so the compulsory takes priority. It is mentioned in the Quran before debt to emphasize its importance. So min ba'di wasiyati yusi biha, it's been mentioned before awdain, before the debt, to emphasize its importance, whereas debts are already embedded in the minds to be important. Last one, the heirs, the inheritors. Now, we'll take questions, inshallah. Priority goes to the ones who answered in Ellsbury, inshallah. Now, تفضل يا اخواني. Do you have any questions from the brothers or the sisters? Because if you don't have a question, then I'll go to my slides and go more and explain more. Right. It looks like everybody, mashallah, is going along with this. Let's just go then share a bit more with this. Jazakumullah khair. طيب. Share screen sharing. طيب. So if you go like this here, we go to page number 8. Right, page 8. If third of the estate did not cover the amount assigned in the bequest, and the heirs did not authorize the excess, then the decrease will equally affect all of those who are listed in the will, regardless being listed first or last. Remember my example? So this person, he had £1,000, and he had 2 people in his bequest. He bequested 2 people, and he's giving them each one £100. Then when the man died, this funeral took money, and then the debt took money, and he's only left with £300. £300, a third of them is £100. So it is less than the 2 bequests, because the 2 bequests 100, 100 is 200. So we have to do now our ratio to divide that. So each one will take, they will have, sorry, the element of decrease. They will have the decrease exactly the same. It will not be going through that this person, first A, because his name is in the bequest, is number A, he will take 100, and the other one will take 0. Because you remember now he's left with 300, a third of it is 100. So the 100 has to go to the ones who's been bequested now, bequeathed. We know that the two bequeathed got 200, but one of them is mentioned first. It doesn't matter if it's mentioned first or second. The element of decrease will go on both of them. The ratio of decrease will go on both of them. So in this case, 50-50. Now, 50%. Type. If some heirs approved the excess amount above the third, while others did not, then the decrease in shares will be on the heirs who approved it. Meaning, if, for example, that this person who had died, he had made a bequest which is above his third. Okay, let's say to our example, this person, he left 300 pounds. He left 1,000, but it's gone down to 300. The third of it is 100. Okay, the third is 100. He's giving a bequest 100 to each person. We said we're going to go to 50-50, yes, but let's say that that all the heirs of that person accepted that, so they will take 200 pounds. They will left because they may be rich children, rich heirs, so they will take 100. Let's say that some of them accepted, some of them did not. Some of them said, we want the third, just only the third to take. Another one, doesn't matter for them. So the one who said doesn't matter to take above the third, that above the third will be taken from there. So let's say this man who had died, he left 2 children. So according to the normal cases here, because the third of his will, which is the third for the 300 is 100, is gone to the bequest, and 100 each of the sons. Okay, if the 2 sons, they said no problem because they're rich, then these 2 will receive 200, 100 each. This is the bequest. If one of the 2 sons, he said I will waive out, and the other one did not say, so one son, he will take his 100, because this is the third is only, and the other one, if he wants to waive out, so if he wants to give more, he could give it from his own 100. He could give, he could give 50, he could give 30, he could give all of it. It will be taken from his own share. But that person, he will take the 100 of his. Now, the testator is still sinned for making an impermissible will, even it became legal at the time of his death, unless approved by the heirs while he was alive. So if I made a will, bequest, in which I have stated more than the third of my money, without referring back to the heirs, my wife and my children, my father and my mother, then I'm sinned. Even they have approved it later on after my death. They said, no problem. So over the third, no problem. Because I did not take their what? Consent. If I took the consent, no problem. I will not be sinned. Or a person, for example, he's giving extra portion to one of his heirs. He's got 2 sons and 2 daughters. So he's giving a portion in his will to one of the daughters. She's going to inherit, of course, but she's getting an extra portion, which is not allowed. He will be sinned unless he took the approval from the other heirs, the other children and the father and the mother and all of those. It is sinful for a testator to make a bequest with the intention of harming and annoying his inheritors. It is not allowed to make a bequest to annoy the heirs. So that you gave all your money, most of your money to somebody whom he's their enemies. Such a bequest, or to more than the third, such a bequest is invalid and not binding. If fulfilled, it is better for those who were bequeathed wrongly to correct the situation. So this man, before he died, he made a bequest in which he had, in his bequest, given one of the heirs more money. Okay, this state is not an Islamic, so they have fulfilled that will, and they've given extra portion from the money of the deceased to one of the heirs, so he will be more than his brothers and his sisters. So for this person who had received more, if he wants to be better and also to decrease the punishment on his father, is to settle this wrong, to correct the wrong. So he could just say, take this is the extra portion, no, divide it between us according to the laws of Islam. I'm not entitled for it. And that's better, inshallah. طيب. Page number 10. If the bequeathed item is damaged before or after testator's death, then the bequest is invalid, no compensation, and the legatee's right is terminated. Meaning, my bequeath, for example, was my bequest. I bequeathed somebody a camel, and as soon as I died, this camel had died. So that person who's been bequeathed a camel, he will get nothing. There is no such thing. Oh, well, he bequeathed me a camel. I want a compensation, guys. He's got lots other, he's got other, assets. I want the value of that camel. No. So if he said that that particular camel, and he's got lots of camels, then that camel will be the one that you're going to take. If it's dead, dead. But if he says just camel from camels, he will be given any camel. Now, the bequest must be of legal money or utilizing permissible services, even if the item bequeathed is undeliverable. So the bequest must be of legal money, so it's halal, or utilizing permissible services, even if the item bequeathed is undeliverable, such as flying bird. I cannot. So and it has to be something that it could deliver it. Flying bird, I can't deliver it, or something which does not exist, such as trees, fruit. In such case, the bequest is only valid when such an existent item materializes. Otherwise, it is not valid. I cannot give something. I say I'm going to give you a bequest of a tree which is not yet to be coming out of the ground. I'm going to give you one of the birds which is flying, a bird as a bequest. Once it becomes existing and can be materializes, yes, it will be given. Otherwise, it will not be given. If stated in a will that the large sum of money within the allowable third of the estate to be designated for making Hajj or on behalf of the testator, then Hajj is to be performed for many times until the money is exhausted. So this man, he said, I'm making a bequest to myself that this money is to be kept for making Hajj. So the Hajj should be performed on that man until the money is exhausted. Unless he states in his will that this large sum of money is to be spent on one Hajj. So I want, no. He left, for example, 10,000. 10,000, I could make two Hajjs out of it. But he said, no, I want the 10,000 for one Hajj. And he died. So in such a case, it is impermissible for heirs to perform it unless it is agreed by the other's heirs. Because we don't want one of the heirs to take more money. So it is impermissible to one of the, we got two sons for this man who died. So one of them, he said, okay, I will do it. And the other one did not agree. They had to agree because he knows he's going to make a Hajj for 3,000-4,000 and the rest is going to go in his pocket. Okay, he's going to make money out of it unless it is agreed by the other heirs. If the will does not define the amount that is to be bequeathed to a certain person, then it is down to the heirs to decide how much to give him. So there was a bequest, and I want to give some money, just like this, some money to such and such person. So we know the person, but he said such money. He didn't specify. So it's up to the heirs after his death to decide how much money they will give this person. With this, alhamdulillah, we finished and we leave the rulings related to the executor, the testator's deputy. Right. You have any questions up to here? Jazakumullah khair. Could see this, mashallah, there's no other questions here. تفضل يا نعمة. يلا يا نعيمة.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salam.
My question is not related, but is it permissible to have, pictures of animals on your key holder and hang them up in our house?
Picture animals, if it's the head is showing with the figures, it's not allowed. So the figures are showing the eyes, the nose, and all of that. No. No.
Okay, Jazakallah khair.
Now.
Mine is also unrelated. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
Sheikh, someone, and thank you for that review for this class, Sheikh. Alhamdulillah. Someone enters the masjid and he missed the congregational prayer, so he's going to pray on his own. Does he do tahiyatul masjid, or can he go straight, or should he go straight to the prayer he has just missed?
It's up to him.
Jazakallah
It's up to him. Yeah. Tahiyatul masjid is only just not to sit down without praying. That's what it is. Tahiyatul masjid is not to sit down without praying. So if you prayed your obligatory, it's included into it, the tahiyatul masjid. Naam.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Imran?
Yeah, Sheikh, you know when the Sahabas and the Prophet ﷺ would depart one another, just saying bye, would they just give the salam and that's it? Or would they say anything specific?
When they meet one another, sorry?
No, when they go away from each other. So, they met and then they're leaving one another.
Salam alaikum.
Okay. Jazakallah.
Same thing. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. A written question from a sister is that if a woman is on her menstrual cycle, is it permissible for her to make wudu to be in a state of tahara, she asks?
How could she be in a state of tahara when she's in her menses? I don't understand that. Trying to understand the question. She's saying she wants to be in a state of tahara while she's in her menstruation? How can it be? I don't know if the sister should understand what is tahara. When the woman, she's on her menses, she's not on state of tahara. Tahara doesn't mean that you're not in state of tahara. It means you are dirty. That means you can't be fit to do the prayer. That's what it means, tahara. The person can be spotless and clean, but he can't pray. Why? Because maybe he's on janaba. He's clean, but he's called janaba. Doesn't mean that you're on janaba, you're dirty. It doesn't mean that. So tahara is a state where you are able to pray. That's what it is. So how can you be in a state of tahara when you are in your menses? It doesn't work. Now.
Barakallahu feekum, Sheikh. Go ahead, sister.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam alaikum.
In the winter time, the salah times are all close together.
No.
If you think you're going to miss a salah, like not Dhuhr, Asr or Maghrib, can you make the intention to combine?
No, you cannot make the content. Why, is he working or something, or is he in the house?
Well, the other day I was out and I was running really late, and that question came to mind.
The person, he is obligated to pray each prayer in its time. He has to pray Dhuhr within Dhuhr, Asr within Asr, Maghrib within Maghrib, Isha within Isha. But if there is any circumstances, whether it is winter or summer, that's a different case. So we have jam' combination for a dire need, something really in need. Somebody who's really in need. And that comes to the cases of the sisters, because the sisters, they can't really have a privacy for them to pray. So they have more excuses than the men to combine. But we say to the sisters, before you go, plan your journey. Plan it. So you know which time, and we've got clocks and watches and all of that. Look what time you're going to be there and what time you're going to be here. And if you're in this place, where it's going to be available for you to pray. Remember, you're not like the man. The man can pray anywhere. So we will urge the sisters to plan their journey. If they've been pushed because of time is tight, they could make this combination, but they cannot make it take it as a habit. You could combine if you are ill. You could combine if you are traveling. You could combine if you are in war, but you can't combine if you are in the market. Called market combination. But as I said, you have just said something, which is that in the winter time of the prayer is very close. When you go to do something, you do as much as you can. When you're being pushed to make the combination, do it, but don't make it as a habit. Now.
Ahsanallahu alaykum, Shaykhana. Abu Nasir ad-Din, please.
Sheikh, on the last slide, is the person who done the Hajj entitled to the remaining money, or can the other siblings say, like, we'll split the remaining money?
What's the question?
It's on the last slide where you spoke about the Hajj.
Yeah.
So is the person who done the Hajj, are they entitled to the remaining money, or can the other siblings say like we'll split the remaining money? So you said that the person.
The question is not understandable because I don't know how can I link it to the last point I said. If the man left money for Hajj, it has to be exhausted until the Hajj is finished. If that money was left and he said only one Hajj to be performed, if it's too much money, no one can do it except by the approval of the other, because we don't want anybody to take advantage. But the other one said, no problem, you just go make it the Hajj because you're going to be extra money. Okay?
Yes, Sheikh, but what if they agreed on doing one Hajj, and of course it was 10,000, you said, and then that would mean there'd be money remaining. So, and then the siblings after, can they agree to split it, basically? Can they agree to split the remaining money?
Sheikh, when there's an agreement, no problem. As I said, when there's an agreement, there's no problem. So
Okay.
maybe this person who is going to take the 10,000, he said, I'm not going to go do it until I take all the money. Either you agree, or one of you do it. But I'm not going to go on, because I want to live in luxury hotels. I want to go in 5-7-star hotels. Because this money is one Hajj. Once they agree upon, no problem. It's the agreement. Okay, to agree to split it, to go to very, very cheap hotels, and the rest of the money to split it between them. It's up to them. No. But it has to be performed in one Hajj. You're saying that, can I split it? The question is, no, you can't split it, because the person who had made a will bequest, he said, I want it to be spent into that Hajj. They cannot, so he wants to spend it in that Hajj. So he could really spend it in charity there or something like this. He can't make it back to him. But as I said, one of them has to agree, because he will be living in such, a healthy, a wealthy environment. He will be, Hajj, everybody is keen to have it. Very rich money, a lot of money being paid. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Ahmed, I have to really stop here.
جزاك الله خيرا شيخنا.
سبحانك وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله